Jane here, and we are going to do my mid-month wrap-up. Now, I will tell you, I haven't read a ton this month, and I'm a little bit worried that the end of the month wrap-up is going to be fairly short. But I think I still need to do a mid-month because otherwise the end of the month is just going to be so long. So, I didn't read a ton, but let's go over what I did read.
Pictures and patterns put into words that stream across the page, capturing life as soft spoken.
I'm going to start with one thing I read that I'm not going to give any kind of rating to, and that was No Spell Lasts Forever, Volume 1. I'd ordered this from the library thinking I was going to be getting an omnibus, and instead I got a single comic. The concept behind this sounds brilliant, but I don't think I'm actually going to be continuing or trying to reorder the full omnibus just because it ended up not being quite for me. So our character, I'm going to read you what the back says. Rosetta Diamont meets an untimely death and strikes a deal with the devil for a second chance at life. Her task, to corrupt one truly good soul. But can she make good on that bargain? And what would failure mean for the fate of her eternal soul? Obviously, in that much pages, not a lot can happen. Stylistically, I don't love this. It is in color, which I appreciate, but it just wasn't really doing anything for me image-wise. And I don't know, just I wasn't calling to me. I didn't really feel the desire to continue, so I decided we're just done with that, but I'm not going to give it a rating because I didn't think I had enough of a sample of it to give it a fair rating. So I did want to talk about that just briefly. It might be something that you really enjoy. If that sounds like a cool concept and you liked the art, certainly check it out. You may really enjoy it. All right, so the next book I read was called Payback. I read it as a buddy read. And I read it with fellow author Gower Bat. And I think we both had very similar experiences with the book. I ended up giving it a 2-star, and I do think I'm going to do a complete video detailing the things that worked and didn't work for me about the book. Now, I will tell you, I don't give 2 stars very often. I reserve 2 stars for books that I think have a major problem and that I think are objectively not great books. In this book, there is some really great things going on, but there was a lot of issues I had that I just couldn't get past for my own enjoyment. So we have a woman who is in an abusive relationship, and she is trying to leave. Shortly after leaving, something really bad happens, and she decides that her ex-husband, or well, I guess he's still her husband is the one who caused the terrible thing, and she is going to make him pay for it. I have so many big feelings about this book. I do love that we are talking about domestic violence. I love seeing her struggles in the early book to try to get away from this man and the things that she was trying to do even when she wasn't successful. I appreciated the woman's struggles. I just thought, I had a couple big thoughts. My main thought is that the bad guy is overdone. The husband, he's just the worstest human being and most powerful human being ever. And I think that was too much. And I thought it was really over the top, the level of if he can evil, he's going to evil. And I get that they want us to see that he's bad. But I've seen other things like Behind Closed Doors where there's also like a domestic abuse situation, but we at least understand and see the guy really being charming to everybody else. We see why people would be surprised. And this is largely like, we see a couple times why this guy might come off as a good guy, but not really. And certainly like not why she fell for him in the beginning. He's just awful. And that really was really over the top. There's a lot of plot things and issues that I thought were kind of poorly done as well. And I just was really frustrated by the book. If it hadn't been a buddy read, I probably would have DNF'd it. But since it was a buddy read, I finished it, and I just cannot give it any more than 2 stars in good conscience. So that's not great, and I'm so sorry to that author that I didn't love your book. Obviously, lots of other people might and do. It just was not for me. And the next book I read was not as for me as I would have liked either, and that was My Dog is a Death God, Volume 1. This is about a death god who becomes a dog and goes to work at a hospice to try to help people deal with the things in their life that are bad so that they can pass on and like not be stuck as ghosts on Earth, I think. I am going to continue in the series. My library doesn't have any more of this right now, and I do want to go a little further just to see if I like it. I was very on the fence about it as far as I read, and I found that kind of frustrating. I didn't feel like this volume felt complete enough for me to decide if this is a journey I wanted to continue taking or not. It ended kind of, I don't want to say on a cliffhanger because it wasn't really a cliffhanger, but I didn't feel like the ending of this was satisfying. I didn't feel like we got a complete story. And I just was kind of disappointed in this, the way it was done, even though I really enjoyed the concept of it. All right, so the Death God one was a 3. The next 3-star I gave was If You'll Have Me. This is a graphic novel about a sapphic relationship. And the characters, PG has a reputation for being a flirt and like getting with everybody. And Momo is kind of a shy, nerdy girl who, you know, has never really dated and been serious about anybody. And she really likes PG, but she's worried because PG seems like a player. This will probably work for a lot of people. It just didn't personally work for me. It was a little bit of a miss. I wasn't really invested in the characters. I thought there was kind of a lot of assumptions and miscommunications. And while this had some cute moments, it just it just wasn't what I wanted it to be, and I didn't actually enjoy reading it very much. Is also a manga. It is I'm Kinda Chubby and I'm Your Hero. This is about a heavyset guy who is in theater, and he starts getting gifts from a secret admirer of his work, and he's trying to figure out who that admirer is. I did appreciate the representation, especially of somebody who was overweight, and that they could still make a difference in theater and still be awesome. I don't have any desire to continue this. It was fine. I understood it, which for a manga isn't something that always happens, but I didn't love it. It was just fine. And if you love theater and you know, this might really work for you. And I do love theater, and I'm not sure why it didn't quite work for me. I just read it and was like, okay, that's fine. It's lovely as a single read, but not anything that made me want to continue on and read more. All right. So now we are entering into our 4-star reads for the month. I have an audiobook, and it is called Ejaculate Responsibly, and it is a essay basically on changing the way we view pregnancy prevention and looking at putting some of that burden, maybe all of that burden, on men instead of women where it predominantly is. And it was a really interesting book and really interesting discussions, and I thought there was a lot of very valid points given within the book. I don't know if anything that is said is really reasonably feasible to act on, but maybe we should consider it. But I did overall enjoy the book. It was not boring, which nonfiction can sometimes be. I thought most of her arguments were interesting and valid, including discussions about how sometimes power dynamics in relationships can be tricky, how men do not tend to be as open in their communication about intimate things as women are, and maybe that's a problem. Maybe if men felt more comfortable talking about how to make condom use comfortable and, contraception on their end more pleasant, that would be a great conversation to be had. And that, men being responsible for bringing condoms that they are comfortable using and want to use and that fit their body would go a long way towards women currently being responsible for a lot of prevention of everything. All the stuff, the babies, the diseases, all the stuff in the bedroom. So I thought it was an interesting essay, an interesting discussion, absolutely worth reading. The discussion is supposed to center on abortion and preventing abortion. I think it kind of does, and it's pretty, like, they don't give a lot of opinions on whether they're pro-life or pro-choice. It's just a, hey, let's have this conversation. So I did like that. Thought it was worth listening to. Not the best thing I've ever read, but certainly not the worst. The next book, which I also gave a 4-star to, was Ascendance of a Bookworm, volume... which volume are we on? Volume 3. This is a series that I'm really enjoying. It is about a girl who is a bookworm, has a pile of books fall on her and dies, and gets reincarnated into the body of this little girl in another world who is living in poverty, and she desperately wants books. So her goal in this whole world is to make books. And in this volume, we have more steps forward and steps backward in her attempt to make materials that could be turned into books and getting connected with people who can help her. I am continuing to enjoy this. I think I liked volume 2 a little better than this one. And I don't know if I'm just having a mood. I don't know if it was a little draggy or what, but I didn't love this quite as much as volume 2, but I do still enjoy it and still want to continue on. The next book was on my 5-star predictions list, guys. Close. It's a 4. It is Witch's Guide to Fake Dating a Demon. So, I think the best thing that I can say about this book is it is a really fun time. And I think a lot of people will really love it. I liked it. I just didn't quite love it. So in this, we have Mariel. And she is a witch who is she's not very good at traditional witchy things. She has a lot of power when it comes to plant magic and baking magic and, very certain kinds of magic she excels in, but her mother is a very high-powered witch and wants her daughter to be doing a lot better than she does, and is putting a lot of pressure on her daughter because her daughter just kind of sucks at the magic that her mom thinks she should excel at, which is a horrible place to be. Poor thing. And that is very sympathetic. So anyway, Mariel, after being pressured by her mother to like incorporate more random spells into things, decides that she is going to summon some flour during a baking. She's making cupcakes, I believe, for a neighbor. So she's baking and she's like, I need flour. So she decides to summon the flour. Well, things go horribly wrong and she summons a demon instead. His name is Ozroth, but he's called Oz through most of the book. Ozroth the Ruthless. And he is a demon who trades souls for wishes. And since she has summoned him, he cannot leave until she trades her soul for whatever it is she desires. However, she doesn't want to trade her soul. She did not call him on purpose. It was an accident. So he's stuck hanging around and she is unwilling to negotiate. And so when people are like, why are you here? Instead of being like, hey, I accidentally summoned a demon and he's trying to take my soul, they start fake dating. Now, one thing is Oz has a soul. Normally, demons don't. There was a snafu with a former transaction, and now he has a soul, and it's doing some funky things to him, including making him feel for Mariel. So, I love the concept of this. I liked the characters. I thought the setting was kind of over the top at times. So Mariel lives in a very magical place. Everybody around her is magical. There's pixies, there's witches, and I think at times it was meant to be cute and funny and sweet, and at times it was just annoying. So I think I got a little bit irritated with that. There is a lot of just like miscommunication and distrust between Mariel and Oz, and especially like when we get to the third act, I got very frustrated with that in this book. I struggled to get into the book, then I got into it and I was really liking it, and then I got really frustrated with kind of the latter part of the book, and then I thought the resolution to how things were solved was great. So I kind of was all over the board with this book. There were a lot of things I liked about it, but it's not a new favorite and I don't love it. There is a second book in the series that I want to try, but I'm a little concerned I'm not going to love it because of who the characters are. And then there's a third book in the series that I am really interested in. I don't think it's out yet though. My library doesn't have it anyway. And I'm hoping I like that one a little better. I don't know, guys. This was cute and it did a lot of things I wanted it to do, but it didn't quite do everything I wanted it to do. I'm still trying to find paranormals that feel like Wolf Gone Wild, and I'm just not quite finding that. And I was hoping that this would kind of have a Wolf Gone Wild feel, and there is a little bit of that in the background, but I don't think it's quite as funny as Wolf Gone Wild. But I think if this sounds like a good time to you, you might really enjoy it. It wasn't bad. I didn't hate it. Some of the miscommunication and the distrust and things that happen later in the book were kind of irritating to me. And while I loved a lot of aspects of the characters, I sometimes found them frustrating and annoying. And this book was cool. It was interesting. It was above average read, but I wanted more. And so I ended up kind of feeling disappointed because I'd had such high expectations for loving it, and I just liked it. All right, and the last book on this list was also on the 5-star predictions list. However, this one did get 5 stars. Nobody's surprised. And that is Barbarian's Mate. So this is book 6, I think, of the Ice Planet Barbarians. I love this series. It's so good. I think that's another reason that some of the other stuff is maybe falling flat for me, because I've been binging these and they're so good and I'm loving them so much. And then I'm reading other stuff and I'm just not loving it as much as I love this. And I don't know if that's at all affecting my experience with the other books, but it might be. So in this, the couple is Josie and Hayden. Hayden, I should probably back up. I assume most people know what this series is about, but in case you don't, there is a ship of girls are abducted on an alien ship. There is a shipwreck, and these girls are taken in by a native tribe of barbarians that live on the planet, and they have a fated mates system. And these girls are becoming the fated mates to these different men on the planet. So Hayden is a widower. And typically, a person is not supposed to have a second fated mate. However, his first mate passed on before he was able to consummate the fate mating, and then the mating, and then also his Kui, which is a parasite that these aliens use to regulate their body temperature and is kind of where the fated mate system comes from. His Kui had to be replaced when he fell ill with the same thing that killed his fated mate. And so he is kind of a grumpy character. He's been through a whole lot, and he has kind of known, it seems, that Josie is his person for a while, and he is very grumpy whenever she is put in danger, and she feels like he's just overbearing and is the least favorite person she has on this whole place. Josie really desperately wants a husband and babies, and so she had not been resonating, and then something happens and she does resonate, and by golly, she resonates to Hayden, who is the one man she doesn't want to resonate to. And I loved it. I love Hayden. I think he might be, I don't know. I don't know if he's my favorite. I've got 3 guys who I love in these books who I would totally marry, and Hayden is one of the ones I would totally marry. So I think he might be my favorite of the guys, but that makes me a little sad to say because I love Ihako and I love Saluk. And like before, I would have been like, yeah, those would be my book boyfriends, like people I would want to date in real life, or like, yes, I would marry this person. And I think Hayden might be my first choice of mates on Barbarian Island now. Or not Barbarian Island, I think that's a spin-off series, but of the barbarians in the caves, I think Hayden might be my favorite now. It was everything I wanted it to be. I just love that series. I don't know what it is, but it just speaks to my soul. I love the characters and I just want more barbarians. And unfortunately, I'm at the place, I think there's one more of the paper books that my library has. These paper books have a bonus novella in them, so I'm trying to wait around and read all of them as a paperback. But I might have to just jump the line and read all the audiobooks and then go back and read like the extra novellas. But this was so good. I loved it so much, and I cannot wait for the next read. I own most of the books that have come out so far, and I'm going to be grabbing a personal copy of this one as well. But, all right, guys, this has been Jane. Tell me if you've read any of these books, and if so, if you felt similarly to them as I did, or if you felt completely different and think I'm, just, you don't understand how I could possibly have that feeling about a book when you felt so differently. Totally open to discourse about the books I read. I would also love to know what you read. Did you read anything in the first part of February that was awesome? If so, what was it? I'm always looking to add to my TBR. If you've seen my shelves, you know that I don't actually need to add to my TBR because the overflowing books. Too many to sit on the shelves that I own. But I love books, and I always want to know about good reads that I could read in the future. If you don't feel comfortable commenting either of those things, give me a little book emoji in the comments. That way it helps the algorithm, and YouTube will know that this is content that people might actually enjoy watching. All right, guys, this has been Jane. I'll talk to you next time. Bye!